This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The gender question and whether the country is doing anything to get to that level that we ought to be at. And to have the discussion with us is Ilham Hisham Said, who is the FIDA Kenya board member. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and we have Marianne Keitany, who is MP Aldai. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
Yes, so here we are to have the conversation around bridging the gender gap. And we know that there is a bill in Parliament that seeks to address the same, but then again, there is the constitutional provisions as well. So where are we as a country? What are we doing to achieve that? But before we get into the conversation, today we are in the Democratic Republic of Congo, a beautiful country. You know, you talk about a Democratic Republic of Congo, you think about resources they do have. But you can't also talk about resources and not the political turmoil that is ongoing in the country that is preventing them from enjoying each and every single resource they have to the maximum capacity. Unfortunately, African Union, East Africa Community, and other jurisdictions that they have signed up to should come together to ensure that Congo, being the king it is with the resources they have, get the most out of it. But let's go to the proverb. So the proverb this morning says, "He who loves a baboon should not mind its ugly face." He who loves a baboon should not mind its ugly face. Ilham, how would you interpret it?
Well, interesting. So basically, in as much as something might appear not to be good looking, there are benefits that are within that person. Yes.
Yes. Mheshimiwa, how would you interpret it?
You know, when you say that, I remember the notions that are normally given to ladies when they are dating men. They say, don't look at the man, look at the pockets.
Yeah.
Basically, it's not about the baboon. It's about what resources or what can you get out of it. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to look at.
Yeah, wow. That's cool. That's cool. So let us just jump straight into the conversation. So here we are talking about the 2/3 gender rule, and you look at the country and the law. Constitution 2010 comes in and says, in elective position, appointive position, we must achieve the 2/3 gender rule. Unfortunately, as a country, we've not been able to get that. Further ahead, and former Chief Justice Emeritus David Maraga makes a judgment that, hey, dissolve Parliament. You know, we've not been able to achieve these. We are operating in an unconstitutional leadership in the country. Go back and fix yourselves and deal with it. And many other Kenyans are also asking difficult questions. You know, should we get rid of the 2/3 gender rule? If you're not able to get it, let women get out there and go head to head with their counterparts out there, you know, because we've been unable to achieve that. But that notwithstanding, the Senate as well are on chariot with a bill here, trying to find a way of achieving the same. So one asks the question, why is it difficult for us as a country then to see the need to have it easy for both genders to just have the same seat at the table? So, Ilham.
Yes.
From FIDA, where's the problem?
Sitting as FIDA, it is actually an issue. It is not just a suggestion. This is a command by the Constitution of Kenya. 15 years down the line, we are still in violation of the Constitution. The very, very law that is enshrining issues to do with affirmative action, issues to do with the 2/3 gender rule. We are yet to get there. We've had the advisory opinion from 2012, in as much as the Supreme Court then, through the former CJ, with the 5-judge bench indicating that it ought to be progressive and structured. We are now 15 years down the line. We've had over 4 cases in the High Court still discussing the issue of 2/3 gender rule. You know, like FIDA has gone to court, CRU has gone to court, LSK in as late as 2019 has gone to court. That is when now it was discussed that it is a must for the violation to stop. And that is when now in 2020, CJ Emeritus did advise the then president on the dissolution of Parliament. So where are we right now? We've had several bills from the Duale bill, from initially the Chepkonga bill, actually. But the same was dismissed because on the issue of watering down the issue of the years. If you look at the 5th schedule, it talks about 5 years. So 2010, by 2015, we ought to have already had the constitution legislated. The CIC was there. It was dissolved. This has not been achieved. It's now more than a decade and a half. The children who were born in 2010, the next election, they'll be voting. Wakokadi. Like, we need to be, as a realistic country, we need to be a democratic country and ensure that we now move to pass. Looking at the Chepkonga bill, yes, it looks at the issue of topping up the seats, Like, it's an added incentive, but we also need to have structures. So the bill, we can say as FIDA is okay, but we need to have amendments to it. Not as it is, but probably have amendments to it. Because our take is that if the issue of 2/3 gender rule can be looked at from the party politics. Because it all stems from the house. Hospitality begins at home. If we really want to look into the 2/3 gender rule, can we be able to have the parties ensuring that candidates are of at least one gender? Can we have women candidates, not just nominated women candidates?
So, Mheshimiwa, as a member of parliament, so she speaks about something that we also addressed this yesterday in terms of one of the easiest way of addressing this would be through the party processes, so the nomination processes, and how then parties would be able to front more women to appear there. But as we're having this discussion, many are saying it wasn't about women. We recognize that the 2/3 gender rule is not just about women, but unfortunately, in where we find ourselves as a country today, it is women who have been disenfranchised. Why you find the conversation has largely fallen on that front. But as a woman sitting member of parliament, are we looking at these conversations on 2/3 gender rule being discussed within the political parties so that it is easier for us to achieve these requirements of the law?
Allow me first to take you back and understand this gender rule issue. Where did it all arise from? And as I go back, before I go back, I think on the political space, we can say that the woman is the one that is disenfranchised. But on other fronts, like in the teaching fraternity, you go to a school and you find it's almost all ladies who are teaching, and the men folk are not there. And there are many other sectors. Every 10 vehicles you see on the road nowadays, I think about 8 of them are driven by ladies. And I think the men are now feeling like we need to have a men's conference. Aside from that, this issue of gender rule, especially the women issue, is historical in nature. And we go back to, I'm a Christian, so the Bible. And in the Bible, the first person created was a man. Then after that, the God said, this man looks lonely, let's create a woman, and this woman was created from a rib. I think that connotation alone makes it feel like the woman is secondary to the man, in my belief. And therefore, if you look at our cultures, our traditions, and our ways of doing things, women have always been seen to belong to the kitchen, to belong to children. My culture, for example, when a man comes to the home and says, is there somebody here? They say, hapana, hakuna mtu ni watoto. Watoto means the mother and the children. The man himself is not there. And that connotation has kind of changed. The 2010 Constitution has really brought forth a lot of development and progress in terms of women leadership and coming into the leadership space. And we look at it, before 2010, of course, the women really agitated the Beijing and all that story. I think we all remember and we can follow through. But after 2010, I think that is where the issue of where does a woman play. Before that, if you look at the previous parliaments we've really had the lowest numbers of women representation. The 2010 Constitution that brought out the woman representative position increased the number by 47. At least, at the very minimum, you have 47 women in the National Assembly. And then after that, now, the elective positions. In this particular 13th Parliament. Okay, in the 12th Parliament, there were 21 women member of parliaments on single constituencies competing with the men. In the 13th parliament where I am today, we were 28, and then one was nominated to the cabinet position, that is Alice Wahome. And of course, when the new person came, it was a man, so we reduced to 27. It was an up from the previous parliament, and we are hoping the 14th parliament will even go further up, depending now on what the players in the political spaces, the parties do. My party, for example, the UDA, and I want to really thank the president because he's been promoting a lot of women coming into the political space. And you look at like the party leader, the chairperson of the party is a lady. It is something that it was unheard of before UDA came, and the president actually gave Cecily Marire that particular position. And if you look at many other nominees in parliament, the deputy speaker, this particular parliament was a lady, and the lady is from UDA. You can see the president has really tried to allow the ladies to come to the front. Recently, in one of his meetings out in the public, he actually told the men that, why are you fighting these ladies who have really come? To get a lady to that seat is difficult. And you find a political seat where, yes, there are men and ladies, very many men are going to fight one particular lady for no reason, but because this person is a lady, not because they have failed to do what they are supposed to do. You're not bringing issues, you're bringing the issue of gender around it. So you can see that he is trying as a political head of a party to promote the ladies who have really tried in that political space. But I want to also laud the late former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. I think he really made it clear, and not by just words, but by action, by saying that where there is a lady in a certain seat, already elected and working very well, at the time of nomination, give that lady a space. Give them the space so that they don't need to compete with the men at nomination stage. Let them get a free ticket, and therefore they can compete with other men at the elections.
Yes.
And that has really promoted. If you look at the number of ladies who are in parliament, majority actually are from the ODM party. And you find that has really helped. The other place where the majority are coming from also is from the Mount Kenya region. I think also because of cultural. Remember, in the cultural needs of Mount Kenya, they believe in Mumbi, the lady, who, and therefore, I think because of that belief, that cultural belief, they put ladies at some pedestal, which is different from other cultures. There are even other areas where you don't even have a lady completely as a member of parliament, as a member of parliament in a single constituency seat. Okay. You don't find them totally.
And Mheshimiwa, the story you paint is one of quite progress and looks very, very clear insofar as achieving the 2/3 rule and achieving the gender divide. But where is the gap? Especially because if you look at you're mentioning big political bigwigs, big political parties. Yes. And I remember the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, at one point also said, shida iko wapi na hii 2/3. Wabunge, pitisheni. Where is the problem? Is it lack of political goodwill? Is it a political question about how to the technicalities of getting the women to match the men, or where are we not getting it right?
I think, as I've said, we've actually progressed. Looking at 10 years back or 20 years back and today, we've made great strides. But if you look at the political scenario, for example, as a member of National Assembly, you actually have Senate is a bit lighter because you have 47 senators, then you have an opportunity to nominate the rest to become 67 of them. So if you do not meet the gender rule, the nominees can be able to be all ladies, and they actually meet the 2/3 at that house. But in National Assembly, we are total 349 members, 290 constituencies that are elective, 47 women representatives, and then you have about 12 nominees. So if, for example, the elective seats, because that is a competition, and you cannot tell people of a particular region, you are going to elect a woman. It is a a free choice. You have to let the people feel that they want to elect the person they want. It cannot be a lady or it cannot be a man. And that was the reason why that particular gender position was brought, where it was now to represent the gender party, which was the 47 county representatives.
Yeah.
And these other elective seats of single-member constituencies, it is for anybody. It's for free. It's a free fall. And therefore, it is difficult to then say or legislate and say constituency A and constituency B must produce a woman member of parliament, and constituency D and E to produce a male. It is so difficult to legislate that. So how then do we go about it? You go about it by empowering the women, and through that empowering, like many women who are nominated, the next time they come to the next parliament, you find them actually going for elective seats. Today, when we started, we only had 0 the first governors, 0 governors, then 3, then 7. And right now, as we speak, the number of women who are really fighting for governor positions, they're increasing in number. We might actually get 15.
We pray so.
Yeah,
as long as you don't impeach
too.
some of them, right? And Ilham, the question that begs is, if you look at Kenya and the context within which we operate, compared to other countries, Kenya is doing very well in other spheres. But if you went to Rwanda, for example, most of the elected legislators are women.
Yes.
You go to Uganda, the same applies, and probably the same might apply to Somalia and South Sudan, etc.
Yes.
Where are we not meeting it? That we are able to drive the region very positively, progressively in other sectors, but when it comes to bridging the gender gap, Kenya is struggling. From FIDA, why do you think we are struggling, and what must we do to be able to really deal with this issue?
Okay. Primarily, there's issues of inequality. When I talk of inequality, I look at the structural inequality. For women, maybe Mheshimiwa will talk to us about it. There's issues of campaign financing. There's issues of electoral violence, even during nominations. And you see, our legislation does not capture the pre-electoral period. So there's need to have legislation on issues of capping campaign financing and ensuring equity. Issues to do with electoral violence, we need to ensure there is proper legislation. Then we also need to ensure that IEBC has a proper enforcement mechanism, because it is mandated under Article 88 to regulate the party list, the nomination process for parties. But we have seen that this has been hitherto, let's say, there. You know, specifically looking at the case of Law Society of Kenya. It was actually, the court actually decided and held that the IEBC is mandated to look into the nomination process of parties. So I'll still go back. If we can address this at the party level, then we are halfway done. You know, like hypothetically speaking, if assuming 290 seats were taken by women,
Magic.
you know, then we have 47 women reps. You know, I'm speaking. We are getting there. We are there in boards already, and we are believing in the next electoral process we will have more women
elected.
elected.
Actually got there.
Yes,
they have all elected.
Almost.
It's full.
Yes,
not
from
full, but almost.
The governor is a lady. All MCAs are ladies. Oh yeah, it's almost, because we have a National Assembly.
Yes.
Correct. You're correct.
So hypothetically speaking, we are getting to that position. So if we do have this legislation, you know, equity in financing of campaigns, having proper sanctions, IEBC can ensure there are sanctions to parties that do not provide party list with enough women candidates. You know, can they then be reprimanded when it comes to financing? You know, proper sanctions can be put in place.
But Ilhan, then one would ask the question. So electoral positions it's a competition. You know, and if you go to county A or county or in a constituency B, at the end of the day, it is the people to decide who their leader would be. So at that particular point, ensuring that the 2/3 gender rule would be decided, it's the people who decide who they want. So I will not vote to you because you're a woman, but because what it is you bring at the table. So we look at the political parties taking this role then in terms of ensuring that, first of all, anyone who's going to run for election is based on agenda, policy, and issues. Unfortunately, these are not things that we discuss within our political parties. It is who is popular, who can speak well, and whatnot.
Yes.
But how then must political parties make this conversation an agenda? Because, fine, we'll credit President William Ruto even when he signed the charter, and the charter 50% of cabinet would be women. That was not achieved, it is not me. It is a charter that he signed. You look at even appointments later, and again, we're not seeing getting the threshold that is required. But from a political standpoint, how must political parties address this issue, starting from campaign financing, members of parliament helping with that, as well as ensuring that electoral violence does not be there. So that then brings in IEBC, brings in police, brings in ODPP in addressing these issues, because we cannot just address it from a political standpoint, but it is a larger conversation that brings everyone on board. So are we having these conversations? Because FIDA might be having it, but without police, without ODPP, without parliament, without our political parties, then that discussion ends there.
Yes, so FIDA does hold multi-sectoral stakeholders forum. However, we are non-partisan. So when it comes to the party politics, it is for the parties now. They do have their own framework. So what we are requesting is we can assist to have gender-sensitive frameworks within the political parties. Within their own framework, they ought to have gender-sensitive frameworks.
Are you able to tell if there is a political party that you would say is trying to achieve the two-thirds gender rule as we speak right now, in terms of their policy, in terms of campaign financing and policies within the political parties?
I can say some are trying, not to name names.
Yes.
the names would be really good.
Yes.
But
some are trying. But I believe that this is the right time. Progressively we are there now, and it ought to come from each and every one of us. We need to hold each other accountable. We are all duty bearers. So if we do not hold each other accountable, then we're going to be talking about two-thirds gender rule 50 years down the lane. Is it achievable? Yes. So we've seen the Chapkonga bill. He's talking about post-election remedies, assuming we now have maybe all 200 women or men, then now you come and top up. So my issue is, if we can have sufficient women candidates, we might not even need to top up, or if we have enough men candidates, assuming the women take the majority seats, there will be no need to have those top-up seats. The main other issue would be the fiscal sustainability of that capacity. The main reason why the Duale bill went, in as much as it was pre-election and it was for electoral process, was because it could not sustain one man, one woman in each and every constituency. It would have bloated the budget. So in this aspect now, it's just a top-up, but then we do not know, what if the 290 are women? So now we are topping over 100 representatives.
Because the senator spoke about patriarchal issues, cultural issues. There are areas in this country that will never acknowledge a woman for a political space.
For a long time to come.
Yes. For a long time to come. I'm wondering whether you've done any research in some of these areas, because we can hypothetically say that we know them. But maybe when you speak to the people, they'll be like, tunataka wanawake pia wakuje, tunataka kupigia kura MC hata governor. Have you undertaken any feasibility researches or, analysis that might probably be helpful in progressing ahead? So
as FIDA Kenya, we also deal with training of elders to ensure natural justice and educating them on the essence of natural justice, human rights, and what have you. So we have dealt with different regions, from Tana River to Northeastern to Baringo. We've dealt at different let's say the former provinces, So we do have these trainings. We capacity build the elders. We do also have capacity building sessions with the public in those localities. So I can say from what we have done as FIDA Kenya. We have actually even seen elders being elected within the council, which was something that was unheard of before. So it is
that's women
a
elders.
process, yes, women elders that have now been recruited in the council. So we are looking forward to also having elders taking part and sensitizing the community on the essence of having women also elected.
Yeah, Mheshimiwa, we'll talk about two-thirds gender rule. Right now we're talking about the need of having more women get into leadership positions. But Kenyans out here saying, I'll not just vote for you because you're a woman. I need to see what it is you're bringing at the table. It is a conversation that many would say it only starts and ends at we want more women in the house. But we're not having conversations on what kind of women do we want to represent us, because someone has to prove as well that when they get to Parliament, right, they would be able to deliver. I keep giving an example of Honorable Millie Odhiambo, got in as a nominated member of Parliament and proved that I'm worth the medal, and every other time she's being voted back in. So how then, as a member of Parliament from inside, right? How are we having these discussions with young women leaders who are coming up, who are going for these political positions, to not only present themselves as vote for me because I'm a woman, vote for me because the Constitution demands two-thirds gender rule. We could ride on that. But at the end of the day, remember, it is the electorate who will give you that vote based off what it is you can offer. So we can talk about political campaign financing, which is a problem. We can talk about electoral violence, which is a problem. But at the end of the day as well, there is what it is, how you are selling yourself, what it is you're bringing on the table. Are these discussions being held?
Allow me to give to answer that by giving first an example of myself. Before me was a lady called Sally Kosgei.
Sally Kosgei, yes.
She was a member of Parliament for Aldai constituency. And the period she was a member of Parliament, she did so much for the people of Aldai. Such that when she was defeated and somebody else came, the 10 years that somebody else occupied cannot be compared with her 5 years. So when I came in to campaign and asked the voters to give me an opportunity, they saw another Sally in me. And that, I believe, was the main reason why I was given that opportunity, because she, at the time she was occupying that position, did her best and gave value to the people that she represents. So back now to the question you ask, what is it that we need to do? I think for the ladies who are already in position, they need to work, I can say double the effort than the ordinary, so that you give the population an opportunity to say, wait a minute, I think a lady can do better here. Let's try a lady, let's try another lady. And I will give another example of Nandi County right now. As we speak, of course, I'm going back. I want to go back as an MP, so I'm running for my seat. And there's another constituency that is also wanting to have, that a lady is also trying to run. And they are giving example of my constituency, saying, you see what a lady has done here, even us, we can do this. There's a lady governor who wants to be governor in the same county. So we are now 3 ladies trying seats that are ordinarily by cultural, seem to be a male-dominated domain. In areas, certain regions, as you've said, culturally, they still haven't believed that a lady can take a leadership position. And I say to myself that is a paradox, because the home cannot be a home without a lady. There is no home. You cannot say, a man cannot say, I will run the home, I'll take care of the children, I will take them to school, I will feed them. But the person who makes a home to be a home is a lady. And I wish we could carry that and see that leadership already that has been demonstrated at the home level can actually come to the leadership of political leadership. As I've said, in the boardrooms and in work environments, because of this, everybody goes to school. We all now go to school. You find a lady and a man compete for a CEO position, and there are so many lady positions or lady CEOs actually. And if we are to put lady CEOs in entities, both private and public, I think we are almost 50-50. Boards, I think, are also trying. And as I mentioned to you, schools, if you go to schools today, there are more ladies as teachers than male. But in the political space, that is the elective space. And I think because of the cultural, and more importantly, as you've said, the campaign process. Yeah. Again, as an example of myself, when we were campaigning with my competitor, he used to go for night meetings to people's homes and do night meetings, which I can't do. And therefore it gives me it gives me a disadvantage. And then the abuses and the money, of course, because again, culturally, we don't own property. We are not allowed to own property. Despite the fact that the laws have now changed, you still find, I was being told the other day in my constituency by some men, this culture of giving women property is a bad culture. Go back to parliament and remove that. And you are telling a woman to go back to parliament. But you see, that alone has also helped to change the narrative, because now women can now start owning property. They can now decide on that property, and they can now own money or have money at their disposal that they can now use in the political processes. You've mentioned about curtailing or having legislation on money that can be used in campaigns. The law is there. IBC regulates, but it is a difficult terrain to regulate. To say now you're going to only allow you to use 10 million. Unlike in the US, where they have structures and systems that can monitor how much money you're using in politics, for us, it is just a law in paper. But actual implementation is still an uphill task.
So what must we do to strengthen that uphill task of it? Yeah.
You sit in Parliament. What is stopping you from coming up with legislation? And then again, unfortunately, you are a woman member of Parliament, and this is a problem affecting women from getting into political space.
True.
So if we know that this is a problem and you sit in Parliament, one would hope that you propose a bill that would make it difficult for individuals, first of all, to campaign for 4 years, for 5 years, to make it easy for women to know that I can only get into campaigning 6 months to the election, because that is what the law says.
We have tried as a country to get out of cash. Or carrying around cash, because the real problem here is cash, because traceability of cash becomes a real challenge. And that is where the law may be there, but when you're dealing in cash, it becomes difficult. The other thing is the cultural issue. When you go to the ground, Mwananchi wants you to give them something small. So it's like you have to, every time you convert your money into 100 bobs, 200 bobs,
50,
so that 50s, and and it is all cash. If we were out of cash, like in the US, it's difficult to carry cash as the liquid cash. It's all digital, and in the digital space, it is more easy to trace and be able to legislate. Where there is cash involved, it's a difficult.
This matters of cash, because the reason why I say money, my money has footprints. You know, so even if you change the money to 500 and 100, there's somewhere you withdrew it from. And as a member of Parliament, if I ask for those details, I'd be able to know how your account looks like, how much you and ask you how you spent it during that time. So if we're talking about withdrawals of 500, 600 million, those involved on campaign financing who by law can look into your account and say, I think you're playing some games, they're able to still trace that and put you on the dock. So it's just that as a country, we do not want to do it. But that notwithstanding, no, it's just because we don't want to do it. People know exactly what they ought to do. They just choose not to do
turn a blind eye.
But we look at the Constitution 2010. I want us to talk about culture. The Constitution 2010, specifically under Article 11, recognizes culture as the foundation of the nation, right?
Yes.
And people with different cultures, there are those, like when we say the culture recognizes women as children. It is their culture. That is what forms the basis of who they are. And in that culture, because everyone understands, including women themselves, that we cannot have women leaders, it is them who go out there to vote for men. Then again, we also have conversation, I don't know how true it is, that women, the population of women in the country is high. It is the very same women who are voting in men. So
Actually, we are 51-49.
51-49, right? 51-49.
Yeah.
But as we have the discussion, mine is how do we reconcile the culture that there is? How do we reconcile the law? And how do we make both of them work to achieve the 2/3 gender rule?
Thank you so much. Primarily, any culture that is contrary to the Constitution is null and void to the extent of that contravention. So speaking about cultures that are archaic, so to say, it is already a nullity and in contravention of the Constitution if you look at Article 2 of the Constitution. So the Constitution also has to be read as a whole, not an article per article reading. Yeah, so number one, it is in contravention, so it is not in light, or it doesn't breathe to what the spirit of the Constitution speaks to. Secondly, there is need for more sensitization. We need to have, because it's all about mindset. You know, if we have people buying in, Maheshimiwa has already indicated, she got the buy-in because her predecessor had done something well. A job well done deserves another hand. And that is why she got it. So as FIDA Kenya, we also have what we call Women Leadership Academy. We normally host it annually, just to train and ensure we are empowering women, giving them strategies on how they can be able to ensure that they get their seats.
I want to ask the question, and I want us to be honest.
Yes.
There is, what you said, there is the spirit of the Constitution. There is reading the Constitution article by article. And many Kenyans, I'll read that article, I'll just go on Google and look it up and say, this is what the Constitution says, you know. So there is a need for further engagement with the Constitution, and this has to be pushed by all stakeholders, you know. And unfortunately, it is women again who has to push this even harder to ensure that people understand it, you know.
What is called the spirit of the Constitution.
What is called the spirit of the Constitution. Because you've said you have to read Article 2 and Article 10 for you to understand what this says, right?
Yes.
But you see, not everyone is a lawyer. Not everyone deals with the Constitution on a daily basis the way you do. So there is the failure of stakeholders in implementing the Constitution and ensuring that the citizenry understand the Constitution. Because you see, if I belong to my culture, there are those who say, if you want to speak to the soul of an individual, you speak to them in their mother tongue. You pretty much get into their culture for them to understand what it is you're saying, you know. So if you want to come challenge my culture, you know, that is bond of contention. I'm going to fight you because you have no right to get into my culture. So my question then is, there is the Constitution, there is the spirit of the Constitution, there is the culture as well that is in the Constitution. How do we marry them so that we say, based off the Constitution and the culture that we have, we are able to marry them together and we are able to work within that? And then we now come to the difficult part of the political parties as well, dealing with this issue within the political parties, nominations that are there, and also just coming up with the legislations that will make it easier for us to do that. It is a lot of work that ought to have been done 15 years ago, not today. So where's the laxity? Mheshimiwa, are you guys sleeping on the job?
As I've told you, I think there's been a lot of progress in terms of women coming into political space and political leadership. And if we go back to those parliaments, there were parliaments that did not even have a single lady, to when they had one lady, 3 ladies, and now we're talking about 98 ladies in the National Assembly right now. And I believe in the 14th parliament, there'll be more, because I see a lot of interest in almost many seats that many ladies want to come. But again, as she said, the cultural aspect, which of course the Constitution on one side says if a cultural belief offends the Constitution, that becomes unconstitutional. And that now brings the issue that people will go to court and say, hey, this is our culture, this is how we've always believed. But what changes that? It is the education. Look at our young people, the people we are calling the Gen Z today. The Gen Z don't believe in that culture. In fact, the culture is slowly dissipating. It is
yeah.
actually disappearing because they now have a new world order. They're saying this is how we need to live. And what has brought that? The education that has brought that. These young people have actually gone to school. And when they went to school, they met Anjeri, they met Chebet, they met Aundo, all those together in one class, who then felt, and wait a minute, who is this who says I am a woman and cannot do this? Who is this who says I am a man and cannot cook in the kitchen? Who is this who says I am this and cannot do this? And they've actually tried to defy. I'm looking at 15 years to come being a different world order and different dispensation. The cultural aspects we're talking about, instead of someone going to court to say, or someone running around and saying, my culture is being defiled by whoever. I think the young people and our new generational change and the internet, of course, is going to change the way we look at things. And just as I mentioned, property ownership was something was unheard of 15 years ago, 20 years ago. You couldn't hear a woman owning a property or being transferred to a property belonging to the father. You'd be told, go to your husband, let your husband give you property. But today, there's a discussion. The woman says, yes.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Our bodies get serums and washes, but underarms only get deodorant. That's why our new breakthrough formula has pure hyaluron and vitamin C to deeply care for your underarms for soft and even skin tone in 2 weeks. With 72-hour sweat and odor protection, try the new Nivea Derma Control range because your underarms deserve more. Nivea is for skin.
This Easter, enjoy a feast like no other on your StarTimes decoder. Fun-filled kiddie adventures. Yes. Thrilling sports. Oh my word! Blockbuster movies. Recharge your monthly subscription today and get upgraded to the next higher bouquet for 1 month. Unforgettable drama.
He's a good man.
I'm happy whenever I'm with him.
It's you, right?
You don't know me at all.
Do you believe in destiny? True love is an illusion.
Captivating reality shows and entertainment the whole family will love. Recharge your monthly subscription today and get upgraded to the next higher bouquet for 1 month. Download the StarTimes On app and stream live channels on the move. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
I'm not just a dreamer. I'm your thank you from the future. I'm that possibility, sparking from the chance you gave to that child. Mimi kesho yako, uliniwezesha mimi kusimama imara. You gave me a place to stand, and I moved the world. Mimi ndiye kesho.
Together, we are creating citizens of the future by transforming education in Kenya.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Right at the table.
Yes, negotiated democracy definitely would give it a plus. Speaking of culture and what you're saying and what Honorable Keitany said, there are places that you would go, they would not even allow you to sit as a woman with the elders.
Yes.
Correct.
So we need to respect that, and we do have our male counterparts who come in to address such issues to the extent that now we can be able to have a meeting with them. You know, like, so it is work in progress. We're not saying that this will be done in less than 1 year to the 2027 elections, but it's work in progress. So negotiated democracy is more than welcomed.
And Mheshimiwa, because you're a living example, because even in Aldai, the cultural space there, the context is not as welcoming to women. As we head towards 2027, and Spice FM has millions of people, including the globe, listening and watching. What is this one thing or two things that should probably encourage women who are struggling to even, say that I want to run for office in 2027, but if I look at the area where I want to run, the kind of difficulties that I have to go through becomes so insurmountable. What is your 1, 2, 3 words to them?
I have met many ladies who say, I really admire the way you're doing things. They say, I wish I could even have a quarter of you. And I tell them, you can have the whole of me and more. Because it is all about inward, telling yourself from the inside, I can do it.
Yeah.
And the moment you tell yourself, I can do it, then everything else becomes, they say, this runner, Kipchoge said,
unlimited is nothing.
Yeah. So everything else becomes unlimited. So it is the inward, and it is about breaking that. It's an ice.
Yeah.
You break that ice ceiling and say, let me get out. Let me do it. The ladies who have come out have actually have broken that glass ceiling and said, we can do it. And many of them fail, but majority of them also succeed. But when you fail, it doesn't mean that you now go and collapse and disappear totally. Come out and say, I will try it again. I know it's difficult, but it is something we can do. The only major thing is that because of the patriarchal society that we have, as you're trying, the male try to pull you down by talking about things to do with sexual issues. They start talking about cultural issues. They talk about what... But I think sometimes you close your ears to those kind of negativities and focus on the positivities. Because anyway in life, human beings are said that they want to pull another down. That is the normal... That's the normal thing about human beings. But it is worse for ladies. But I think if you close your eyes and ears to those kind of negativities and push ahead, you can't be able to cross that ceiling. I talk to our ladies, our young girls in schools, because many of them say, I want to one day become a member of parliament. And I tell them, not even a member of parliament, you can become the president. I want you to look bigger. And because they say aim high, you will reach somewhere there. So aim high, look bigger, and work hard. And from where you are right now, in class, do it better. And when you do that better, it gives you that confidence, and you're able now to do it even better and better as you go. The Gen Z movement that we saw in 2024, the face behind the Gen Z was a young girl. You saw it. It was a young girl who said, we want to fight for our freedom, we want to fight for our rights. It was not a young boy, it was a young girl. And you can see that girl broke the ceiling and said, I want to fight for it.
I'm just wondering whether they, in terms of the acquisition of the nomination certificate, must they know someone in the political party if they are running through a political party?
Not really.
Okay.
Do your thing on the ground.
Okay.
You will be picked up.
My question would be, we've talked highly, we've actually spoken highly in terms of where we are, women leadership and all that. But there is also the flip side of it. Other women leaders who are in office today have pretty much just let Kenyans down. And we have we have women leaders who are there and they're doing their thing. We have to give them their flowers. But we must as well just say that those who are letting Kenyans down. And that as it may, in a space where we have fewer women in this leadership position, when one lets Kenyans down, it is highly publicized. It is what Kenyans will see. And many would also say, kama tuliwapatia opportunity and this is what you did, why should we even care? So you have to deal with that factor as well, and then brings women as well on the table and say, what is your responsibility in calling out your fellow women who are letting Kenyans down, because it is making things difficult for more women to be elected into office. Ilhan, we will talk about changing the culture. We'll talk about reading the constitution, the spirit of it. But when someone has been given an opportunity and has messed up, Kenyans will say, I mean, there's a section of Kenyans, let me not say Kenyans, there's a section of Kenyans who will say, but we gave you an opportunity. Look at what they did. Why should we even bother moving forward? We might as well just... we might as well just remain doing what it is we are used to. So how do we have these conversations among women to as well praise those who have to be praised, but call out those who have to be called out?
Yes, so I believe there is KEWOPA.
Yes, there's KEWOPA.
So we do have associations that do help women in politics. FIDA itself also has capacity to assist, and we've come in to help several women, elected women who are in such situations. But one thing I'll say, which is something that has been repeated over and over again, we are in a patriarchal society. We cannot wish that away. You know, one thing that a woman would do wrong, we've had more than 50 men doing wrong, but we don't hear people sleeping, waking up to it every day. But one tiny thing that a woman would do, yes, it's a wrong, and a wrong is a wrong, and we'll call it out, but it should not be ingrained in us such that now every other woman cannot hold capacity or hold office by virtue of that person. We've had over 50, 100 people. In fact, if you look at the society, they tell you, in fact, in Kenya, if you do ABCD, then you are more recognized, you are more valuable, unfortunately so. You know, and we want to wish away such thoughts. We need to now start looking at matriarchy as a society. What can we do to ensure, you know, they say, educate a girl, you've educated a nation. Yes. The same thing applies. Can we have more women taking up spaces? You've talked about issues of how can we get them there. The first thing is for people to come out. We've had situations where we've trained leaders whose own spouses were not up for them to run. They were doing campaigns without their husbands knowing that they were actually campaigning, only for him to come and find out that the woman has now been elected.
In some
The
areas,
husbands
even
are campaigning the women themselves.
in some areas, they even keep the ID cards.
Exactly.
You know, and this is where we find ourselves today. That 2/3 gender rule is a problem for us, but that we should not stop there in moving forward to achieve it. Each and every single person has to come on board and put in the work. Where others do wrong, we call them out. Where others do right, we praise them, and that it is not only a conversation for Spice, it is actually a conversation for the nation. We need to change our cultures. We need to read the spirit of the Constitution and understand it, you know.
And the men folk need to be at the forefront, because they have a wife, they have a daughter, they have a sister.
Wanaume, kazi kwenu. It is exactly 8 a.m. My name is Dennis Aseto, and Ilham Hisham Said is a FIDA Kenya board member, and Marianne Keitany is the MP Aldai, bridging the gender gap. Kazi kwetu. Situskiza news. Leo baga up with the newswire. Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The latest news from around the world. This is the Situation Room, the only way